Thank you, Chair Hogan, and good evening. I'm Eric Sandler. I'm the Water Authority's Director of Finance. And I have a short presentation here, and I wanted to basically share how all of the work that's being done in terms of supply reliability and infrastructure improvements are reflected in our budget, and then also address what's currently driving rates and charges. I wanted to start out and get oriented with the big picture. And what I have here is a pie chart that represents the Water Authority's two-year budget. We have a biennial budget, so this is the budget for fiscal years 2010 and 2011. The total budget is $1.65 billion. What you'll notice is that 46% of this budget goes to water purchases and treatment. So purchasing water from the Metropolitan Water District, from IID, and paying for treatment from our treatment providers. And what you'll also notice is when you look at the tan slice of this pie and the purple slice of this pie, this tan slice represents expenditures on the capital improvement program. So all of the projects that Chair Hogan was talking about, the expenditures for those appear in the tan slice of this pie. And the purple slice of the pie represents our payments for debt service. So we build those projects by issuing debt, and this purple slice represents our payments on that debt. When you put those two slices together, you account for another 46% of our budget. The remaining slice, operating departments here, represents 5.5% of our total budget. And the operating department's budget pays for operating the pipelines, the flow control facilities, the reservoirs, management and maintenance of all the right-of-way in the county, water planning, conservation programs, MWD program, Colorado River program, and various support departments. Now I wanted to just briefly touch on what are the major drivers or what have been the major drivers of rate and charge increases over the past several years. Now first and foremost is the increasing cost of imported water. Between 2008 and 2012, so the 4-year period, MWD, our main supplier, increased its cost of Tier 1 treated supply by 55% over 4 years. We expect additional increases from MWD as they deal with their own issues. Dennis Cushman will be talking in the next presentation about what the Water Authority is doing at Metropolitan to advocate for Water Authority member agencies and control costs. In addition to the increasing cost of imported water is the cost of debt service on the bonds that we've issued to fund all of the capital improvements that you've seen. And lastly, another driver of rates and charges is the decreasing sales volumes that we've been experiencing. Water Authority sales have decreased since 2007 and the implementation of our drought management plan from 661,000 acre-feet in 2007 to 410,000 acre-feet in fiscal year 11. That's a drop of approximately 38%. And what that means, while we don't have to purchase that water to then sell, it means that we have fewer acre-feet over which to spread our fixed costs. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what the Water Authority has been doing over the past 2 years, over this current budget period, to manage rate impacts. First and foremost, we have implemented budget reductions to our operating department budget. We've cut $2.4 million in fiscal year 10 and another $3.6 million in fiscal year 11. Those cuts have been reductions in outreach, conservation programs. We've scaled back services and studies. We've reduced equipment and supply purchases and other items. That represents about 7% of our operating department's budget. It's a very significant cut. Secondly, we have, because the supply and the demand picture has played out so differently over the last 2 years than when we originally produced the budget, we're able to achieve some savings in 2 other areas. So when we put the budget together, fiscal year 2009, we expected to have to purchase spot water, expensive spot water transfers, in order to meet the demands of our member agencies. As it turned out, demands were lower and we did not have to purchase that expensive spot water, which saved money for the agency. And in addition, over the past several years, as supply conditions were playing out pretty poorly and we had cuts from Metropolitan, we were storing water in member agency reservoirs throughout the county to meet member agency demands. As it turns out, demands in this winter particularly, supplies statewide are very good. And so what we were doing is selling some stored water out of those reservoirs. And what that means is we save money because the water doesn't evaporate. And then also because we purchased the water several years ago, it's at a lower cost than purchasing water from Metropolitan today. In addition, we've been using some of our rate stabilization reserves. We expect to draw about $5.4 million from those funds this year, set aside for managing rate increases. And then as well, over the long term, we are challenging discriminatory rate practices at Metropolitan, and Dennis Cushman will provide a more thorough explanation of our activities up there. Last Thursday, the General Manager of the Water Authority presented to the board for their consideration a recommended budget for fiscal years 2012 and 2013. Now, in that presentation, the General Manager noted that we're really dealing with dramatically different circumstances than when we prepared the last two-year budget. And so we call that the new normal. And some of the features of the new normal are dramatically reduced water sales forecast. As Chair Hogan discussed, we have the transition of the Water Authority from a building agency to an operating agency. We're at the end of some of our largest capital projects, and now we have to transition to operating them. And we're reorganizing and consolidating to enhance our efficiency in operations. Similarly, we're managing personnel costs. That includes dramatic staffing reductions to reflect the decreased amount of capital activity that we have, as well as employees are picking up 4.5% of the cost of their pension plan starting July of this year. And then overall, the Water Authority is working with its member agencies to look at opportunities for service efficiencies. So how can we work together to accomplish things more cost effectively? Things such as mowing and grading of rights of way or risk management activities. And so what I have here is the recommended budget for fiscal years 2012 and 2013. As you can see, water purchases and treatment still represent actually a larger portion of this pot, 49% versus 46%. And you can see that the combined CIP expenditures and debt service represent 43% of the pie. Some highlights of the recommended budget. It is 16% below the amended fiscal years 10 and 11 budget. The principal reason for that is decreasing expenditures on the capital program. The budget continues to fund vital water reliability projects and operations and benefits from a comprehensive effort to reduce expenses and pass savings to ratepayers. A couple of the key elements of that effort include the deferral of 14 CIP projects for deferral of $150 million in expenditures from this proposed two-year period, from the 2012-2013 period to afterwards. And another feature of one of the big activities the Water Authority is going to be undertaking over the next two-year period is an update of the water facilities master plan. So the scope, schedule, and cost of capital improvements going forward. In addition to the CIP deferrals, we've cut $6.7 million from the operating department's budget. That's about a 7% reduction in the budget. Additionally, we've controlled labor and benefits cost. That's in the CIP and the operating budget. And we've reduced them by $4.5 million, and that's the result of significant reductions in staffing. So I have here some of the detail behind the staffing reductions. And what this graph is it's a graph of budgeted full-time equivalent positions from fiscal year 2008 to fiscal year 2014. And you can see that our workforce management efforts are going to accelerate during this upcoming budget period. We will be reducing staff by 31.3 full-time equivalents. And what that translates into, if you look at that entire time period, that's a 16% reduction in staffing. And these positions are not vacant positions, they are people who will be going out the door. So I wanted to just briefly touch on the recommended rates and charges for calendar year 2012. So along with the recommended budget, we presented to the Board of Directors notice of a public hearing and recommended charges for fiscal year or calendar year 2012. It's an all-in wholesale treated water rate cost of approximately $1,148 per acre foot. It's a 7.7% increase versus the estimated treated water wholesale cost for calendar year 2011. And it's a 7.5% increase for untreated water. Now, just to look at how that increase breaks down, the pie on the left represents the total increase of about $82 an acre foot. And as you can see, 50% of that increase relates to supply costs. And on the right, you can see the breakdown of supply cost increases. More than 70% of those supply cost increases relate to increases from the Metropolitan Water District for the purchase and transportation of water. Now, one of the things to consider when looking at the Water Authority and thinking about rates going forward is debt service. So we have made significant investments in capital. We've done that through issuing publicly bonded debt, and that means that debt service will increase, even though capital spending is actually going down. Much like a homeowner paying a mortgage, the Water Authority finances its capital costs to spread them out over time. And what this graph shows is our annual debt service payments through 2050. Now, while construction expenditures are declining, debt service payments will increase through about 2020, and they will remain at about $150 million per year. So given that debt service is a significant portion of our expenditures going forward, I wanted to spend a little bit of time about Water Authority's financial practices and what we're doing to most efficiently finance the capital plan. We have award-winning budgeting and financial planning. We receive regularly awards from the Government Finance Officers Association and the California Society of Municipal Finance Officers for our budgeting and for our financial reporting. In fact, today we received the GFOA award with respect to excellence in financial reporting. As a result of our good practices, we enjoy very high credit ratings from all three credit rating agencies, from Fitch, Moody's, S&P. We've received upgrades in the past 2 years. And what that translates into is the ability to get the most favorable financing terms available in the market. So, for example, we were the first agency in the county, and in January 2010, we were the first agency in the county to take advantage of the Build America Bond Program, which was a feature of the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. What that means is that we were able to issue debt, 40-year debt, at an interest rate of 3.98%, which resulted in a savings to ratepayers within the county on a present value basis of approximately $50 million. So now I'm going to turn the mic over to Dennis Cushman, who will tell us a little bit about what's going on up at Metropolitan.